And this hangout on air is live. We are TINT, the premier free culture sports podcast, and we are going to do something a little bit different today. We are going to preview the Allsvenskan season, and this is probably the only time we'll talk about the Allsvenskan until the end of the season, unless, well, we might talk about teams from the Allsvenskan if last year's champions, Malmo, or the other teams from last year in Europe end up doing something which hasn't happened. Well, I was going to say it hasn't happened since 1978. Malmo made the final in 1978, but I don't know if teams have done well since then. Certainly not in recent years. But anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and address the things that you pointed out first, Evan, because those were things that obviously someone other than me was interested in. So I guess I'll start with the fact that I did, just like we did with the MLS, I did the FIFA predictions. I didn't ask you to do this because I didn't figure you cared, and we're only going to spend like 3 minutes on it. So I just thought except I didn't press start on my stopwatch, so we might spend a little longer than 3 minutes on it. But
extra time, man.
Yeah. So anyway, I probably am in like the top 1,000 Allsvenskan followers in the United States. Be my guess.
I might go higher than that.
You mean?
I don't know.
I'm just thinking like think about so Malmo, I might be really willing to go higher than that on. But like if you think of all the like people that have lived in Sweden,
Yeah.
or have like stronger family ties to Sweden than we do, I would imagine like if you went to either the North Midwest or like a huge city like New York, that there's probably a fair amount of Allsvenskan.
That's true.
But in Baltimore, I'm probably in like the top 10. So, but anyway, the thing is about the Allsvenskan too is winning that league, like as far as like the teams that I follow, probably actually means more to me than any other league. Because what winning the league means is that I actually have a chance to watch Malmo play. That's like, so like there's like, I mean, it's not like I can do anything really to help them, but just as far as like, winning like the sheer like actual results that come from it, it means more there than probably anywhere else. So anyway, basically your questions were all about the Europa League and the Champions League, and then we had some other talk about Bob Bradley, which is not the Allsvenskan, but is just across the border, so we'll talk about that too. So the thing you have to remember if you go and look at sportazine.com, look at the show notes here where I've gotten it broken out, is the first year the results in FIFA for the Europa League and Champions League, they're auto-generated, the teams that are in. Now you can force it to seed teams, quote-unquote, more appropriately, but I don't ever do that. In fact, I usually make it such that the teams from like the big leagues are like easier. For whatever reason, I think probably Real Madrid was in the Champions League and then got knocked down to the Europa League, and that's why they were in the Europa League. I'm not really sure what happened about that, but yeah. So that was your question, that Real not make it out of the group stage. It's possible just their randomization put them in the Europa League to begin with. I don't remember that. I could actually go back and look. I think, although I might have moved to the next season.
It just seems like FIFA should know that Real and Barcelona should be in Champions League every single year.
Yeah, and if we had more time, we could talk about the Clasico and how Real may not be in the top 2 this year, but we're not going to talk about that. So you'll have to go look somewhere else or go poking around the site maybe for an article that doesn't exist yet on that. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I did think it was interesting, and I think FIFA should do more of this, where they should. I like the randomization engine to a certain extent, but I think if they built in like matchups that happen in real life, like as part of their algorithm, I think that would be interesting. Maybe they do, and I'm just not aware. But anyway, so Swansea is who put Malmo out of the Europa League in 2013 in real life, and that's also who put Malmo out of the Europa League in my simulation this year. So
That's cool.
yeah, and in the Champions League, you asked about Shakhtar. I have no idea what their transfer policy was. I think, again, it was because a lot of the teams that would have normally been in the Champions League were not in the Champions League. So we are over the 3 minutes, but I'm going to ask you about I'm going to address this question. It says, does FIFA copy prominent coaches into the game? What do you mean by copy?
I didn't mean copy. I mean, do they just have prominent coaches as figures in the game? I know that they at least within the first season, it'll mention a coach by name, but I don't know if they actually show them in the game.
Oh, I don't think that they do, except that in the FIFA Ultimate Team, you can get coaches, and it has their pictures. But, yeah, so I don't believe so. As you may or may not be aware, depending on how quickly you listen to the Men in Blazers, Bob Bradley was on the latest Men in Blazers. So if anybody wants to learn about the Tipper Login, which is the Swedish neighbors to the west in Norway, which I think is generally considered a better league than the Swedish league, marginally so, but a better league than the Swedish league. Then I mean, we could look at the FIFA rankings or the UEFA rankings and see how marginal it is, but my understanding it's a slightly better league. But anyway, let's move on to EPL, unless you have anything else to add about the Scandinavian leagues.
Nope.
So I assume your comment about Man City needing to drop a couple of points is such that Liverpool has a chance to win the title.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, Chelsea is going to need to drop some points somewhere, too.
Well, Liverpool plays Chelsea, so that's the 6-pointer right there. I'm not assuming, but if Liverpool wins that game, then if they continue to win out, they still need Man City to drop some points.
Okay, yeah. So I don't even care who United plays at this point. Except the Champions League, which I assume they're going to lose in, but we can address that later. So we do have a huge game, the fourth place trophy that Wenger likes to win every year. He might not win it this year if things don't go well on April 6th. They play Everton, and you say that it all but ends Everton's top 4 hopes.
Yeah. I think at that point, if the top 4 win and Everton loses, I think they'll all be about 9 points clear of Everton with about 6 games left to go. That just seems like they would need a lot of favors done for them to make it to the top 4 if they lose on the 6th.
Yeah, and I said I don't care about Man United, but they are up 3-1 on Aston Villa. Not like that's, And, okay, I am going to address this. People are calling Man United's season, wretched, using words like that. I'm sorry. Man United's season is not wretched. You know whose seasons are wretched? Sunderland, Cardiff, and Fulham. And, you might go a few places higher, like West Brom and Crystal Palace. Those are wretched seasons. 7th, not up to United standards, but it's not a wretched season. It's totally respectable. They have, 0 chance of having a losing record. I mean, it is technically possible for them to have a losing record, but it's just not going to happen. I don't think it'll be possible. It will not be possible if the score holds in this game. So, I don't know. I think it's a bit ridiculous. I also think it's a bit ridiculous that they are as bad as they are, considering the talent they have. But I'm not a big fan of the hyperbole. I have to say, too, that I don't know if you heard the comments, but Moyes was like, United needs to be more like City. That was like, what are you on drugs? Why would you say that?
You can't say that.
No, that's no.
Say that.
So I think, I would at that point I would just be like, look, he's lost me. Except I just don't believe in giving people one season. I think it's ridiculous. I think he gets another season, hopefully. I mean, that's sort of like the United tradition. Whether or not the Glazers really care about that, I don't know. We'll see what happens. But anyway, let's see what else we have on the EPL docket before we move on. There's nothing. I mean, there's Josie Watch, but Josie Watch is not a very exciting fare these days. So if you're okay with it, we can go ahead and move on to Europe.
One thing I did want to note is that it could be that Liverpool and Man City both have a chance to get to 100 goals. It's only been done once in the modern Premier League by Chelsea in 2009-2010. They scored 103. We could have two teams this season. I was doing some digging to see, like, when has teams scored 100 goals in a season, and lots of teams in like the 50s and 60s and the 30s. And there was actually a season I found where two teams scored over 100 goals, where Arsenal and Aston Villa both averaged 3 goals per game. But they played like 42 games that season, so they had like 120-something goals. But still, modern era, it's only been done once. We got a chance to see it twice this year. I guess I'm pulling for it. Not that I want to see Man City score that many goals, but it would be interesting to see.
So you say that defense hadn't been invented yet. When was it that Brazil pioneered the back four? Do you know off the top of your head? Because I don't.
That was more of a joke, just because there were so many teams in the 30s that had.
That's actually true. It's not just a joke. So I don't know if it was 58 when they won their first World Cup, or if they had started playing the back four before then. But people think of Brazil as this hugely aesthetic, offensive side. But actually, they were the ones that were like, hey, maybe we could win some games if we actually play defense. So, So, I mean, let's move on to Europe. I have to say, United has about as much chance of winning the Premier League as they do winning the Champions League. I mean, with the draw that they've gotten, that's just not pleasant having to play Munich. But they got the easiest side against Olympiacos and made tough work of it. So I guess that's karma at some level. So. So you've got a note in here about the Barcelona-Madrid or the Atletico matchup. So what do you have to say about that?
Well, I was just commenting on you said that you would like to see it kind of more than keep the country separate, and I'm more of the mindset that we should when we get down to the Final Four. I don't want to see teams from the same country. I know last year we had 2 from Spain and 2 from Germany. I just don't want to see a final or the chance of a final between 2 teams in the same country. But I guess if those are the 2 teams, the 2 best teams in Europe, then they should be playing each other. I feel like we should get all of these out of the way so that we can start seeing games that compare more league to league.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're comparing the league to league. I mean, if you're in the last 8 instead of the last 4. I don't know. I mean, it seems like it doesn't really matter where those matchups have. But if you force the teams not to play from the same country, you get more of those across league comparisons. Like, because you do it as long as you can.
That's a valid point.
So,
I mean, either way, there's something that bothers me about the chance of a final between 2 teams from the same league. But I guess if those are the 2 best teams, then they should have the right to play each other in the final.
Yeah. So you asked about where is Italy? Well, they're in the Europa League or not in Europe. That's the easy answer to that. I don't have a lot to say. I mean, I could talk more about the Italian league and some of the struggles of the Milan teams, but we are running a bit long, so we can move on unless you really want to discuss that.
Yeah, it was usually in the last 8. I would like to think that there's usually a Milan or an Inter, but this year there just seems not to be.
All right, so let's move on to MLS Fantasy. I somehow am still undefeated, even though I believe, in third place on points. Not that that really matters, but wild card. Uh, what are your thoughts on it? I've never played in a league with a wild card, so I'm not sure exactly how to address it.
Yeah, I never really heard of it. I was comparing it to other fantasy leagues and other things where you have a limited number of transfers over a group of games, or if you compare it to fantasy football, where you can change your entire team every single week if you want to drop players and add other players. But that doesn't make as much sense in fantasy football as it might in fantasy gridiron as it does in fantasy MLS. It seemed to me that the wild card was a free weekend just to basically make as many transfers as you possibly could.
Yeah, that's what it is.
And the only reason I could see to ever really, or when to play it, is if you really need a victory for some reason that week. Maybe you're playing somebody who's in first and you got a chance to beat them and take over the top spot.
So for a 6-pointer, basically, you would think that's when you would deploy the wild card.
Yeah, or if you just if you're gonna have a bad week because guys got injured, or there's a lot of buys that week, or you got a chance to add players who play multiple games in a week. I don't know how often that actually happens in the MLS. Um,
Well, there's a chart, and I'll stick the chart in the show notes. Actually, maybe I'll use it for the image on the show, so people can it'll be just in people's face. But it's a basically a picture, an image of a spreadsheet that has all the double game weeks and everything in it.
so I mean, if you just need to drastically change your roster for whatever reason, need that win, then go ahead and employ it. Maybe your team just is really bad, and you want to change things around really quickly.
That's what I was thinking. So the MLSsoccer.com guys suggest using it late. So I guess basically you have a lot of information about who's good in your league. The wild card, I think, probably matters less when it's not a head-to-head league, but that's sort of another story. But my thought is, if you've picked a bad team to start with, why suffer through an entire season of 2 transfers a week and just make your wild card early? And then, I mean, that's what I guess the MLS soccer guys were thinking people would do, and they were cautioning against that. But I think if you're 0-3 at this point, then maybe you should seriously think about not having those same players. Just get rid of them. That's my thought.
Yeah.
I do want to say that the stream of the week this week, so if people aren't familiar with the stream of the week, you just go to MLSsoccer.com, go up to the top to schedule, and there's TV schedule. And each week on the TV schedule, one game is free on MLSsoccer.com. And it's really good video quality. They do a good job with it. And this week it is Columbus versus Seattle. Now, it's late for me to be going up there. Now, there is also a way to vote for the stream of the week. I don't know how to do that. I don't like these late games. But the one rule that they have is that the nationally televised game cannot be the free stream of the week. So as long as you're not going up against the nationally televised game, it could be any game. So, all right. So I think we are done with football, unless you have anything else to say.
What day of the week are these games on? It seems like there's a time, but not a day of the week.
Let me look at this. That is true, except for the last one, which says that it's on the 20th, aka it can't be the 20th. That's got to be the 30th.
30th?
Or maybe I copied this. No, that's got to have been a typo, because it says Sunday, and let's see what the March 20th was. March 20th was a Thursday, so that should be March 30th, which is Sunday. And all the other games are on Saturday, aka today. So we're recording it's 10:19 Eastern Time, and the first there's 2 games are at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. So hopefully this should be out before then, unless meteorites strike the apartment or something, and it'll be out by 4 o'clock. Or the power could go off. It is raining. I don't think it's particularly storming bad, but that's more likely than meteorites, just for the power to go off. And I won't have a way to edit the show if the power's off. All right. So March Madness. I would like to both gloat and be humble at the same time. I'm like one of like 5 people in the world that have all of their Final Four teams left. But I am actually in 4th place in our league. I do have the most
points.
yes, I do have the most possible points left, but Wendy is in the 99.5th percentile at this point. And she just did I am a Big Ten homer. I'm going to pick all the Big Ten teams. And she picked an all Big Ten Final Four. Now, Ohio State, I thought was going to cost her pretty quickly, but it hasn't. I mean, obviously, it's cost her some, and she's not going to be able to have all of her Final Four teams. But she is still in 2nd place for her possible points. And she's well in front. She's 70 points ahead of the person in 2nd. So it is what it is. But you, on the other, you are not quite on the opposite end of the spectrum. But
tied for it.
You're in. You're not
tied. No, that's points remaining.
Yeah. You're in 8th, and out of 9, I guess. We have 11 technically, but 2 of them just decided not to show up for some reason. But yeah, but I mean, you could still at least you're not Eric, whose national champion is already out.
True.
So that's something.
I just want to say to the games are just so close that, I mean, that Iowa State-Connecticut game looked like it was going to be a blowout, and then Iowa State made it a 5-point, or closer than a 5-point game near the end. Like, I think they got it down to 2 at one point, and that's without one of their star players. So injuries kind of hurt me on the Iowa State card. But some of these, the Virginia-Michigan State game down to the wire, Kentucky-Louisville down to the wire, like so many of these games got so close. Michigan and Tennessee, another one. Michigan was blowing them out, and it got down to a 10-second game at the end where Tennessee kind of, had some kind of clock mismanagement. They needed to foul earlier than they did.
Well, that's what happened. Well, it wasn't really clock mismanagement. It was into the game messes up. The only reason that Florida didn't lose to Kentucky in the SEC championship game. I mean, Kentucky had the ball and just didn't get a shot off.
Let's see. They had the Dayton-Stanford game. I think Dayton won, I guess, maybe the most comfortably. I guess Wisconsin probably won the most comfortably. But then Dayton probably won the most comfortably after that. What was that, a 10-point game? I guess Florida had 11. But it's just these games are so close that, you pick a team that has a bad week, that gets a small injury, somebody gets in foul trouble, and you're going to get it wrong.
Yeah, so I was wearing a hat. I could put on my UNC hat. They were out of the tournament, but just so I have more hats going on. I'm hoping that next time we record I can wear my Kentucky hat because they'll have won it all. I don't know if that means that I'll have won my bracket or not. If they play Florida in the championship, I think that a lot of things would have to happen, but I have Florida winning. So there's also, you probably noticed, Evan, but for anybody that's not watching the video, I've got Bucky back here hanging out. He's kind of ominous, really. Sort of like over
yeah.
I tried to get him. I tried to get him like to sit right here, but if I sit him right here, you can't see him because of the camera angle. And then like there was like nowhere I could put him except like on my like I could put him like right in front, and then you can barely even tell it's a badger at that point. Well, I guess it's something.
I think it's hard to tell it's a badger at any point.
Yeah. So obviously people will have to go look the video if they want to see what Bucky looks like. Bucky is he's fighting the good fight against Scott Walker there. Still, he hasn't given up. Sorry for that. He was actually I had put him back there for like the show. But I put him there last week, and we recorded Music Monument, and he was back there the whole time for Music Monument, and like people probably just wondered what was going on with that. But anyway, you have in here that at some point Michigan is going to start shooting so well. Could the same thing be said for Kentucky?
It could be, but I don't think they shot extremely well last night. They're a team that just needs to basically pound it to the middle of the paint and put up a shot and maybe get an offensive rebound, maybe get fouled, go to the free throw line, knock down some free throws, and get a few threes every now and then. Last night they still hit some big threes, but Michigan's offense, at least the past 2 rounds to me, looks like it's been let's put 4 people on the 3-point line and try to find the open guy and shoot a three. And at some point, like history tells us, that just doesn't. You can't win on that philosophy. So maybe they can score a lot of points against Kentucky and pull it out. Maybe they start missing because Kentucky's long and athletic. So maybe they can challenge all of these threes.
Yeah. Very true. So I have not seen Arizona play, but I've seen Wisconsin play. You said Wisconsin looked a lot better. I still think that Wisconsin is, to a certain extent, a one-man show. That's going to be their downfall. I'm pretty sure. They're too reliant on Kaminsky.
Yeah.
I mean, he's good, and you need a player like that. I just don't think they have the rest of the team is talented enough to win the national championship. Well, maybe they beat Arizona in a close one, but they're not going all the way.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really have anything other than say. I mean, you say that Dayton will maybe make a game interesting with Florida. I'm not convinced with Dayton. I mean, I know that obviously they won in the first round, but they've had not the hardest route to get there. I mean, they played a 10 seed in the last round, so.
They beat Syracuse's zone, and Syracuse is known for their defense and forcing turnovers, and I think Florida's not known, but plays good defense and lives on
but
turnovers.
The only thing you need to be able to do to beat the zone, though, is to be able to knock down threes.
Right.
I mean, if you can't do that, then the zone is a beast. But if you can do that, then you've got it beat. I mean, you knock the team at least out of playing the 2-3, and then maybe they can, beat you playing man-to-man. But I don't know. It's not, tactically, it's just, if you're hitting it, you're hitting it.
Yeah.
I mean, that could be said to a certain extent against any defense. If you're making shots, you're making shots.
Well, I mean, I think Florida's going to win probably by 10 or 12, but I do think Dayton's going to be more of a challenge than, an 11 seed. It's a 1 versus an 11, but I think that they're going to be more of a challenge than your typical 11 seed versus a 1. Probably about 10 or 12 point win for Florida. That game should be today.
Yeah, the 2 TBS games are today, and the 2 CBS games are tomorrow. The way that I put them in here, I put them in here before that I looked at the schedule. So what I will do right now is change that up so that they're in some sort of chronological order. They're actually still not in chronological order, but they are by day, so I'll make them in chronological order for the show notes. But I do want to remind people of a couple things before we get out of here, but before we do that, do you have anything else you want to say before we wrap it up?
No, not really. That's pretty good.
I want to let people know that they can get involved in the Sportazine. Let me know. It's douglas.whitfield@law.unh.edu if you want to be a writer or if you want to come on the show. You can also donate. Links are always at the bottom of the post. And we have a World Cup predictor. World Cup is still a couple months away, but the predictor is already out because the teams have been known and their seeding and everything since December. So you can join us in that. Last time I was in the top 15 of the world. I don't know if that's going to happen again, but I certainly hope so. We'll have shows until then, but if you just want to check in, back and see how amazing I am at the World Cup, then you can do that too. So until then, this has been TINT, the premier free culture sports podcast.